for joining us for another edition of To My Way of Thinking, where we talk with the tree shakers, policymakers, and those persons who would make our country a better place to live. Today, with us once again is Mr. Snipe, 1945, Terry Payne from out of Marble, North Carolina. He's an email blogger. And we've had a lot of interesting conversations over a period of time. So, Terry, let's get right to it. One of the things,
Fred.
One of the things that are facing us right now, in fact, as we speak, as always, on CNN, among other places, there's a press conference going on with the vice president holding forth. But last time we talked, the president of the United States was getting ready for his second term in office, and a lot of things that he talked about doing, he's in the midst of having done them and accomplishing a few more about what's taking place. So tell us, let's start with the elephant in the room, the thing that most folks are looking at right away, and that's this business with Iran. He's indicating that he's not going to stop reach an agreement with them until they decide to give up all their nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, we're all being squeezed a bit by the Strait of Hormuz because the ships that carry 20% of the oil around the world has virtually been stopped. And I still find that rather strange, seeing as how we pump so much oil here in the United States. I don't know why what's coming through the Strait of Hormuz would be such a big deal, would squeeze us so much on gas prices, but it has. So what's your take? A lot of people, even conservatives, have reached the point where they're saying this business with Iran was really unnecessary, and they wish we would get out of it. What's your take on this Iran business?
Well, I think that those folks have a short memory, because really, let's face it, for 47 years, Iran has been saying death to Israel, the small Satan, and death to the United States, the big Satan. And we'll never know what would have happened if Iran had a nuclear weapon, but I think we can all agree that it would be a little bit worse than paying $4 a gallon for gas. I do think my frustration is not the gas prices, but there again, I don't depend on that for a living. But my frustration is, I believe, my concern is we're going to kick the can down too far, and we won't have another president like Trump in there that can hold Iran accountable. The last I heard, Trump has given Iran 3 days basically for a so-called peace deal. Iran has never negotiated in the history of the Muslims leadership, the mullahs. They have never ever negotiated, and I don't think they'll negotiate now. So the issue is, when are we going to, military operation-wise, what are we going to do to finish them off? Because in my personal opinion, unless there's regime change, this has been a failure. And that's a big issue. If we don't have a regime change over there and you don't get rid of the mullahs, then the Iranian people are continue to be slaughtered. I mean, we know now that they're bringing them out of the jails and murder them in the jails now. We don't know how many, but the last figures I saw, at least 42,000 people, they murdered their own people. And they're murdering people daily. Unless there's a regime change, it's been a failure, no matter what happens to the price of gas and getting the nuclear dust. My take on that is we're going to have to go in to get it. And that means troops on the ground. Yep.
Well, that's the issue. I mean, it does mean troops on the ground, and it means also some civilians on the ground, because from all of the information that I've seen, that enriched uranium, where it is virtually in the center of the country. A lot of digging is going to have to be done. Sure, we've destroyed a lot of the manufacturing end of it, but a lot of digging is going to have to be done, and that's going to take a lot of time. And that means that we're going to have a lot of troops around that area to protect those folks who are in there trying to dig it out. it becomes that becomes a long-term nightmare that's not going to take 2 weeks or 6 months to accomplish. And you use the term failure. Now, this president doesn't use the term failure with anything that he does. That's a word that just not in his vocabulary, but you use the term failure if you don't get there. We killed off a number of the leaders of Iran. We're down to the son of the last mullah, so to speak, and even that person is injured, and we're negotiating through third parties with Iranian officials. When is going to be enough for this administration?
Well, I think the issue is it's going to take internal turmoil, and for the IRGC, which they're just as rabid as the Mullah leaders. They're no different. I mean, these are true believers. Unless there's an internal, and I say internal with the help from the outside. Remember, originally there was a plan for the Kurds to be armed. We armed the Kurds, and now what's happened is they've kept the weapons. They haven't done anything with them. They've kept the weapons, even though they've traditionally been allies of ours. They kept the weapons. They haven't taken any actions that I know of based on what we know, what I don't know. I do think the positive thing we have is we know the Israelis, the Mossad, and I guess it's Labet, their intelligence agencies are a lot better than ours. And I have a feeling that they know more information than you and I do about what internal is going on there. We know for a fact that they know where the rest of these leaders are, and given the green flag, they're going to take care of the rest of these so-called leaders in Iran. They know where their apartments are. They got people on the ground there in Israel. Israel does in Iran. So I believe it's going to take internal change. I think we're going to have to continue the bombing campaign. Unfortunately, I know that Trump doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to have the people of Iran have to suffer any more than they have by turning out the lights and destroying the bridges. But the bottom line is, in war, what you got to do. And I think that's the other thing is he doesn't want to really destroy completely their oil capacity, Carg Island, because that completely demolishes their economy. I know he doesn't want to do that. So I think it's going to take an internal us to arm all the experts that I hear, military experts, General Keane, who I think is one of the smarter, people around militarily, he said the same thing. You're going to have to arm people inside Iran. And he's also saying you can't negotiate with these guys. These are 7th century barbarians. They're accustomed. Their whole Islamic language, the word surrender is not in there, and the lying is part of their culture. That is Allah. Muhammad said you can lie in order to, pursue their faith and their goals in Iran. That's part of their culture. So they're not going to voluntarily give up the nuclear dust. They're not going to stop harassing vessels and going through the straits. I think the only answer is continued military action and internal turmoil. How we do the internal turmoil, that's going to take somebody smarter than me how to do that. But it's got to be arming the people on the ground that are in there. If it's not the Kurds, it's got to be somebody else.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we're going to have a third party, as we've already had third parties helping us with the negotiations, so to speak. But a third party is going to have to be involved in this thing. But what is absent from this, from the very beginning, and it doesn't seem to be, in all honesty, with a Republican majority in Congress, what is absent from this is that none of this has been sanctioned by Congress. Neither the House nor the Senate have passed a resolution authorizing this, at least saying, hey, we're okay, we back the president. We don't have any of that by Congress. Money is being spent that is, I guess, already there, but Congress is not given an authorization for this action, and Congress is not given an authorization for any more funds to be put into this action. Aren't we in the midst of a violation of the Constitution by even going this far?
Well, the Wars Resolution Act of 1973 has never been even ruled as constitutional. It's never been, and I'm sure that Trump doesn't want to go through that drill right now, but it's never been ruled constitutional by the Supreme Court, the 1973 Wars Resolution. Well, having said that, it's an easy way to go around that, and it is just like what they did in Iraq. Remember, Obama was in 7-8 months. We were in the Yugoslavia, and then we were in Libya. And that was that past the 60 to 90 day frame. So the way you bypass it, and the way Trump's going to bypass it, is not going to call it the same thing as it was. It's going to be called a new military operation. And that's the way you get around that.
Well, the problem with that is that we were not attacked by Iran. Yes, having them blocking the Strait of Hormuz and preventing oil from oil tankers and such from going and coming was and is a big time inconvenience for many of us, but there are ways around that don't necessarily mean you got to go through that little seaport there to get it. But we were not attacked by Iran. And because we are the kind of country we are, a lot of Iranians live in the United States, are citizens of the United States, and their relatives and such have been hurt by this bombing and all of this that America has done. Are we ever going to be able to, at least while this president is in office, are we ever going to be able to clean this mess up? Or are we just going to be stuck with this business of him trying to force them to stop trying to get a nuclear weapon for the balance of his term?
Well, we've been at war with Iran for 47 years. It's an undeclared war, just like the war in Korea was undeclared, just like a lot of other wars are undeclared. But I forgot how many thousands of Americans. I was in the Eastern Mediterranean when the Iranian proxy, Hezbollah, murdered 247 Marines, sailors, and Army in Lebanon. So we've been at war with them. It's been an undeclared war. They've killed more Americans than the IEDs that were being supplied to the militant groups in Iraq all came from Iran. So they've killed thousands of American soldiers and civilians. I can't say directly that they were responsible for the 9/11 in New York City, but we do know that they've been linked to terrorist attacks worldwide, and Americans have been murdered. I mean, look at in the African terrorist attacks in the 1980s, where Americans were murdered by Iranian proxies. So, directly, you can say they directly haven't been at war with them, but indirectly they've murdered Americans for 47 years. And so, we've never been any declared war since World War II.
So, am I to assume that? And what I didn't do in introduction to you is label you a conservative columnist, a conservative blogger. But am I to assume then that most conservatives are backing the president on this issue, no matter what, and whatever he decides to do for the balance of his term is all right with them?
I would say that's not true. Unfortunately, I wish it was true. The issue we have with the Republican Party is you just look at the problem with the SAVE Act is you don't have much of a spine over there, and particularly in the Senate. We have radical co-libertarians like Rand Paul and Massey who do everything they can to. If the Chinese communists were on the steps of the White House or Congress, those two birds would be saying we have to have a declaration of war. It's unrealistic. But yeah, there's a significant amount of opposition in the Republican Party to making strong decisions, but that has to do with them being reelected. It has nothing to do with what's right for the country. It has to do for them getting elected. The only reason they're concerned about gas prices, keep in mind that the gas prices now are less still than they were during the Biden administration. Okay, they're still less than during the Biden administration. And here where I live Western North Carolina, I'm paying less. I'm paying $3.47 for a gallon of gas.
Oh,
Okay,
that's not happening down here. We're well over $4. We can't
in
count.
Jacksonville,
Yeah,
yeah,
well, in Florida generally, we're well over $4
right,
25 cents.
right,
It did come down for $4.50, but
right.
now we're at 4.25 and moving around. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, we're not dependent upon the Strait of Hormuz. Again, we pump a heck of a lot of oil here in the United States, and as do several other countries. And we're only talking about 20% of that for the entire world that goes through the Strait of Hormuz. So it's not a deal breaker for us. It's just something that we're going to have to adjust to over time.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the choice is: do you want Iran to have a nuclear weapon, or do you want to have high gas prices temporarily? And for me, the choice is easy. If Iran had a nuclear weapon, look what's happened in North Korea. They got a
Well,
nuclear weapon. Yeah.
Well, that being the case, I mean, are we going to do the same thing with China? Are we going to do the same thing with Russia? They all have nuclear weapons, and they pose a greater threat to us, especially in Russia's case. They pose a greater threat to us over time than has Iran in the eyes of many Americans. And we're not threatening to go in there.
Well, you don't have to, because after they see what we did to Venezuela and what we've done in Iraq, they won't screw around with President Trump. In Iran, I'm sorry. They won't screw around with Trump. The Chinese treated Trump about 180 degrees different than they did Biden and Obama. They didn't respect Obama or Biden, and they treated him accordingly. But the Chinese saw how accomplished our military is at what we did in Venezuela. They went in there and plugged out Maduro and his wife when they were surrounded by like 500 Cuban militants and Venezuelan army people, plugged them out, and look what they did there without losing one American life. And then what we did what we're doing in Iran, and they're scared to death. America, they're not going to screw with Trump, and that's the big difference. And they're not going to mess around with Taiwan either while Trump is around. Now, if they've got another Democrat in there, I can tell you things are going to be a lot different, because I don't see any of the current Democrats that have anywhere near to compete with Republicans if the Republican Party runs a decent presidential campaign. But that's for another discussion.
Well, clearly, as we take a little pivot here with the time we have left, clearly one of the big accomplishments of the administration has been the immigration issue, and stopping and virtually closing down the border, and keeping all those, quote, criminal elements, criminal immigrants from coming in here, and deporting a lot of the immigrants who are here, whether or not they have good papers or not. A lot of them are being sent out of here on quick, fast, and a hurry term. But the farmers and the ranchers are paying the price for this, because a lot of Americans, black or white, aren't going out there, picking potatoes and running the ranches like they used to. Do you see this as a major accomplishment for his administration?
Well, absolutely. The one of the big myths is, and I've done some research on this, and the Center for Immigration Studies did a study on this a number of years ago. There was the myth that we're dependent on illegal immigrants for our economy in certain professions. They actually did a study, and they studied, my numbers are a little bit off, but it was about 460 different occupations based on a census. And of those 460 some odd occupations, there were only 6 immigrant, meaning legal and illegal immigrant, dominated professions. And that was they were like dominated by like 54%. There were still like 46 or 47% of those occupations were still natural-born Americans. So I think that's the issue is in a capitalist society where the issue is the cost. If you can, these businesses that, like the pork industry in North Carolina is Smithfield, which is owned by the Chinese, by the way, they hire illegal immigrants. And why do they do that? Because It's the old cost, the old supply and demand curve in cost. If they can get that price per hour down, they're going to hire illegal immigrants if they can get away with it more than they are natural, American citizens. So a lot of these industries, they'll hire American. They won't hire American nurses. They'll hire H-1B, for instance. I'll tell you this good story. You bring that up. My stepson works for Fidelity Investment in Raleigh. He's very, very good. He's a web designer. He's in charge of a whole group of people. The company puts pressure on him to hire H-1B visa immigrants. Okay, he has to screen them. He told me the other day, because he brought this up, and he's more liberal than conservative. Okay, he told me that his problem is he can only pass one out of 10 of those H-1B visas is qualified to do the job. So he won't hire him. He'll tell his bosses, "I'm not going to hire that person because I'm going to end up having to do his job." So that's the problem. It's a supply and demand curve. If these industries can hire somebody cheaply, they do. And a lot of Republican-dominated the Republicans in the Congress and Senate will support these H-1B visa things. And heck, there's even a program, I forgot the name of it, that they hire people and they don't have to pay FICA taxes on these immigrants for 1 year. So sure, they're going to hire them. They don't have to pay any taxes on them. They don't have to put there's 6.5%, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They don't have to put their portion in the pot, and so they hire them. I forgot the name of the visa program, but there's so many visa programs out there. So my biggest thing right now I have on the legal immigrants, I love what Trump's doing there, but Congress has not done anything on these various loopholes in these visa programs, and that's where we're really getting run over by foreign workers.
Well, I think Congress is simply waiting for the president to make a recommendation. I don't see any recommendations, nothing strong that's going to get through a committee or even go to a committee coming out of this Congress at this point in time. Would you agree that if the president doesn't propose it, Congress isn't going to do it?
Well, I've seen some action taken. I've seen the department that's responsible for looking at visas and everything is looking now at some of these visa, what I would call fraud. A lot of it. They're looking at a lot of those programs, and a big example. Also, we talk about illegal immigrants. One of the biggest things that they are starting to look at is this temporary protection status, what TPS status, where these Hondurans and other Southern American countries were given this extended status for temporary protection status. It was supposed to be just temporary, TPS. It's become an illegal immigrant amnesty program. That's been in the state for 25 years. Hondurans and Salvadorans, and there's 250,000, some of them in some classes, are given temporary protection status, and the Republican Congress just passed that. They okayed it.
Okay, well,
so I tell you, you and I know, Fred, money is what drives this stuff. And
exactly.
These PACs, they get money from these lobbyists to vote to allow those TPS and these visas programs. That's where they get the money to get reelected.
Well, I mean, we are a country that does believe in dollars and cents and making money and all of that. So we can't be terribly surprised that major corporations try to find the cheapest labor they can get.
A big surprise, right?
To work. Now, final question for this round. We're going to have to come back because we got a lot to talk about.
Sure.
Here's one for you. Will he run for a third term, and would you support him running for a third term?
Oh, absolutely not. Trump, I think that he enjoys getting the media aggravated, which doesn't take a whole lot with his Trump derangement syndrome. I think he enjoys playing that game, but Trump is, I think among all things, he really is a patriot. And he's not going to do something that's going to upset the constitutional basis of the country. I mean, you think things are crazy. You and I both know that both sides can get wacko. I have a veterinarian that told me the other day that Trump has bypassed the what is it that you're, goodness gracious, my mind just went blank. Where you're required that you can't just be put in jail without protection. Anyway, he's told me the other day that Trump has bypassed that law, where you can put people in jail without any sort of legal protections. And I said, well, are you talking about J6? I mean, there were a lot of guys that did nothing, or women that did nothing but be on the steps of the Capitol, and they were serving time in jail when they did trespassing, So there's a lot of misinformation out there. It really is. And the money just drives this stuff, or drives me crazy. It's like the SAVE Act. You and I know that all these rules in the Senate, the only thing the Constitution says about passing a law in the Senate is a simple majority vote. The filibuster laws are all ginned up by the Senate. The Republicans and Democrats could do with the Filibuster Act anytime they wanted to. But because of the politics and the money driving that, they don't. The SAVE Act, my prediction is if the SAVE Act is not passed, the Republicans very easily could lose the Senate and the House.
All right.
Yep.
All right. We're going to leave that for the next part here. We've got a lot to cover, and I'm sure that by the time we talk again, some of these issues may not be resolved, but we're going to have some answers to the questions that we've posed here. Mr. Snipe, 1945, Terry Payne. Email blogger of very much note. We'll look forward to having you join us once again. Thank you for your time, Terry.
Hey, thanks so much, Fred. You're always we're always very civil to each other, even though we may agree to disagree on some issues.